What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of History Behind the Horror. I'm your host, Tay, and for tonight's video, we will be getting back into the universe of Bioshock. Now, I'm sorry that I've been gone for about 2 weeks. I've been really sick, but tonight I feel a little bit better, and I thought it'd be more appropriate to do another Bioshock video than anything else, since our last Bioshock video about the Big Daddy did really good. So thank you guys so much for all the likes. Thank you guys so much for all the sharing. If you did, it really does help the channel out a lot. And thank you guys so much for hitting the subscribe button and the bell notification. That also helps the channel out a lot. And thank you guys for all the wonderful comments that you left in our last video. I really did enjoy reading all of those. So if you guys would like to see more Bioshock in the near future, make sure you also like and share this video. Hit the bell notification if you can. Subscribe if you're new, because we got more things coming up soon that I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss. And leave a comment for what else you want to see next on the channel. With that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight, and I hope all of you enjoy the video. Elizabeth is a 19 to 20-year-old woman who has been imprisoned in Colombia since she was an infant, and the protagonist of Bioshock Burial at Sea, Episode 2. Booker DeWitt is sent to retrieve her from the city and bring her to New York. She is guarded by Songbird, a monstrous winged creature who was both her guard and only friend during childhood. She began to hate him as she grew up, seeing him as a warden prohibiting her freedom. Elizabeth has the power to manipulate tears that exist in the fabric of time. When Booker frees her from a tower on Monument Island, the founders, Zachary Hale Comstock and Songbird, are determined to recapture her at any cost.
But you're too impatient, that's enough!
What about this?
What about it?
This is the way out, isn't it?
What are you... Give it to me.
Elizabeth, originally named Anna DeWitt, was born in 1893 to Booker and Annabelle DeWitt, who died during childbirth. Booker, then a Pinkerton agent, was expelled from the agency after Anna's birth for his use of extreme brutality in quelling a workers' strike. Booker then descended into depression, excessive drinking, and gambling, building up a large debt burden. Later that year, Booker was contacted by Robert, a representative of Father Zachary Hale Comstock, an enigmatic man who offered to pay off all of Booker's debts in exchange for Anna. On October 8th, Booker gave Anna to Robert as instructed. However, feeling immediately regretful for his actions, he pursued Robert to retrieve her. He found Robert at an open tear between dimensions and struggled with Comstock to take Anna back as Rosalind looked on. His efforts were in vain, and the three escaped with Anna through the tear. As the portal closed, it severed Anna's pinky finger when she reached out for her father, placing her simultaneously in two different realities. Anna was taken to the floating city of Columbia, built in a parallel universe by Comstock, an alternate version of her father who was unable to have his own biological children. Seeing that Columbia will fall without an heir, he sent Robert and Rosalind to retrieve Anna to ensure the city's continued prosperity. The populace of the city was told that Anna, renamed Elizabeth, was a miracle child who grew in Lady Comstock's womb for only 7 days before her birth. Elizabeth was to be upheld as the heir to the Comstock's throne, who would one day cleanse the world of the Sodom below. However, Lady Comstock believed that Elizabeth was the bastard child of Rosalind and Comstock, and demanded that the child be removed from her home. Around this time, tears of reality began to appear in Columbia, confusing and terrifying the populace. These appearances were caused by Elizabeth's arrival in the city, as it was eventually determined that she had the ability to create tears in space and time at will. Because of this ability, Lady Comstock forfeit rejection of her. Elizabeth was moved to Monument Island for containment and study. One of these tears contained the City of Rapture and the works of Dr. Shachong, such as plasmids and protectors known as the Big Daddy. Fink and Shachong collaborated on the protector for Elizabeth, and thus the Songbird was created by Jeremiah Fink to guard her. Elizabeth bonded with the Songbird through an act of kindness when it crashed into her tower and she found its oxygen tube detached. Elizabeth reattached it, and thus the Songbird imprinted on the young girl. As Elizabeth grew, she spent her time reading, appreciating arts, learning a variety of skills such as dressmaking, painting, and lockpicking, and experimenting with tears. By the time Elizabeth reached puberty, she began to resent Songbird and wished to leave her tower. As her powers continued to grow as she approached puberty, the Ludus twins constructed a device to control Elizabeth's use of her powers. Before the device was installed in 1907, Elizabeth apparently spent a large amount of time in other realities where she was able to socialize to some extent and even learn how to skip stones. When the device was activated, it trapped Elizabeth in the Columbia reality and solidified her desire to escape. Elizabeth remained in her tower until July 6, 1912, the anniversary of Columbia's succession, when Booker DeWitt finally arrives in the city. Unaware that she was being observed, she uses her powers to open a tear to Paris in the year 1984, shocking Booker. While Elizabeth is on her balcony in the library, Booker accidentally falls through the ceiling. While she at first reacts aggressively and pummels him with several books, she realizes the significance of another human presence and reacts to him with awe and disbelief. Booker's intrusion alerts Songbird, and Elizabeth frantically instructs him to leave. However, when he offers her a key out of the apartment, she readily accepts it, fleeing the tower with her liberator and escaping via the skylines. Songbird attempts to recapture Elizabeth and destroys the upper portion of the tower, sending Booker and Elizabeth pummeling from the structure. The two land in the artificial ocean attached to Battleship Bay, where Elizabeth rescues Booker from the waters and gleefully enjoys her newfound freedom. Booker then spots the First Lady and suggests that they use it to leave the city. Elizabeth agrees to follow him when he promises to take her to Paris. However, at the park station, Comstock's agents attempt to take her back. Elizabeth witnesses Booker kill the attackers and flees in horror, calling him a monster. Booker justifies himself by saying that she is a target and that he has no choice but to draw first if they want to survive. Reluctantly, Elizabeth agrees to continue her journey with him. The two then head to the Hall of Heroes in order to retrieve the shock jockey to power the gondola to the First Lady's aerodrome. While trying to access the Hall of Heroes via the elevator, Elizabeth opens up a tear to get rid of a bee in the compartment. When Booker reacts with terror and awe, Elizabeth explains that she is able to see small breaks in the fabric of the universe, which she can widen, opening up a path to new realities. She also claims that when she was young, she was able to create tears between universes rather than simply open them, but that ability was lost to her as she grew up, probably due to the device. After Elizabeth and Booker confront Booker's old war comrade Cornelius Slates in the Hall of Heroes, during which Elizabeth learns about Booker's involvement in the Wounded Knee massacre, the two enter the memorial to Lady Comstock. There, Elizabeth finds an inscription about the seed of the prophet. Booker and Elizabeth realize that the Comstocks are her parents, and Zachary Comstock wishes to turn her into a new prophet. Having no knowledge of this information previously, Elizabeth reacts with anger, saying she wants nothing to do with Comstock. After dealing with Slate, Elizabeth and Booker travel to the aerodrome to retrieve the First Lady. Boarding the aircraft, Booker sets a course, but Elizabeth immediately recognizes the coordinates as being for New York rather than Paris. Not willing to be Booker's prisoner, Elizabeth knocks him out with a wrench and tries to fly the airship herself. However, while Booker is unconscious, the ship is surrounded by Vox vessels near FINKTON. Landing the First Lady on the FINKTON docks, Elizabeth runs away, leaving Booker to his own devices.
Okay, will you just turn around and talk to me and we can...
Booker later finds Elizabeth at FINKTON, but she flees, using tears to hamper his pursuit. During her efforts to escape him, she is captured by Founder agents, but quickly gets away as Booker arrives and opens fire on them. In the ensuing chaos, Booker nearly falls from Columbia. Despite her feelings of anger and betrayal, Elizabeth brings a small blimp into existence to catch him. Elizabeth begrudgingly agrees to accompany Booker in the effort to reclaim the First Lady, on the condition that he takes her to Paris.
Hey, I'm slipping!
Do not attempt to follow me, Mr. Dewitt.
Elizabeth, I've made an arrangement to get our airship back.
You can get us out of here.
Yes, I just need to supply enough weapons to arm an entire uprising.
And where will we get these weapons? From one of our many friends and allies?
A gunsmith in FINKTON should be a walk in the park. What do you say, partners?
You're a liar, Mr. Dewitt. And a thug. But you're also my only means of reaching Paris.
To get the ship back from Daisy, leader of the Vox, Booker and Elizabeth must retrieve items for the resistance from a gunsmith named Chen Lin. While Booker takes on a task out of necessity, Elizabeth comes to admire the Vox, believing them to be freedom fighters akin to those who ignited the French Revolution. She also becomes more trusting of Booker as the mission progresses, noting that he protected her from the founders at his own peril. While sneaking into the depths of Fink's factory, Elizabeth finds a locker with Slade's name on it and searches through the contents. Inside, she finds Lady Comstock's diary, and reading it discovers that Lady Comstock is not actually her mother. Lady Comstock writes that she will not allow her husband's bastard to live under their roof, and Elizabeth realizes with astonishment and rage that it was Lady Comstock that had her locked away in the tower. After fighting their way through Fink's factory, the two find Chen Lin dead, but also discover a tear near his body. Understanding that Elizabeth's powers are not strong enough to allow them reverse passage, and thanks to some advice from the mysterious Ludus twins, they enter a reality where Chen Lin is still alive and married to the sister of Fink's head of security, which saves him from the fate he experienced in the other reality. They find this Chen Lin to be disoriented, a side effect of his death in the opposite reality, and decide that retrieving his tools might help. Booker and Elizabeth travel to a shanty town beneath the factory, where the tools have been taken. While there, Elizabeth notes the suffering Fink's greed has caused his workers, many of whom cannot eat and are sleeping on the streets, and begins to more vocally support the Vox, believing they can change things for the better. After fighting their way to the police station and finding the tools, the two realize that there are too many supplies to carry with them back to Lin's shop. Elizabeth finds another tear nearby and opens it, taking them to a world where the Vox revolution is fully underway and the revolutionaries are laying siege to Fink's factories. Returning to the gun shop, Elizabeth and Booker find Chen Lin and his wife dead, which deeply upsets Elizabeth. She blames herself for their deaths due to her initial faith in the Vox and her opening of the tear into the new reality. As the Vox already have the weapons they were instructed to supply, Booker and Elizabeth go to retrieve the First Lady. However, their initial deal is complicated by events unique to this new reality. In it, Booker is an enemy of the Vox's cause, and seeing him alive causes Daisy to send her forces after him, as he complicates the narrative. After battling through squadrons of both Founder and Vox forces, Booker and Elizabeth arrive at the docks in time to see Daisy murder Jeremiah Fink. When Daisy turns her weapon on the Founder's child, Elizabeth frantically instructs Booker to boost her into the vents and then distract Daisy. As Daisy justifies her reason for killing the child, Elizabeth stabs her in the back with a pair of scissors, getting covered in blood in the process. Elizabeth reacts with horror as Daisy dies in front of her before she flees to the airship. Though Booker tries to console her, Elizabeth locks herself in a room on the ship until after takeoff. When she emerges, she is in a new clean dress, an outfit of her mother's that was stored for viewing on the First Lady, and has cut her hair. She asks Booker how one can forget the things they have done, to which Booker responds that it isn't possible. Just as they are about to leave Columbia, Songbird appears and forces their ship to crash in Emporia. Realizing that they will not be able to leave the city as long as Songbird is pursuing them, Elizabeth and Booker travel to COMSTOCK house to uncover the secret of how he is controlled. Along the way, they once again meet the Ludus twins, who point out that Songbird is controlled by playing a specific tune on a specific instrument. However, the gate to COMSTOCK house is locked and requires visual recognition and a fingerprint match to access. While the lock initially recognizes Elizabeth as Lady Comstock due to her wearing her mother's dress from the airship, it rejects her fingerprints. Elizabeth then realizes that Lady Comstock's remains are preserved in the nearby Memorial Gardens, and she leaves Booker there to get Lady Comstock's hand. Though Booker tries to talk Elizabeth out of it, her determination to leave the city and loathing for Lady Comstock drives her forward. When Booker goes to unlock the casket, Zachary Comstock springs a booby trap, unveiling a series of Mitre siphons around the tomb. Punishing Elizabeth for her actions as well as draining away her power, he uses the energy to bring Lady Comstock back as the Siren, a mixture of her late self and a living version of her created through Elizabeth's hatred towards her. Though the Siren does fight the duo, resurrecting the dead to send after them, she also reveals critical information to them. Following her ghostly footprints through Emporia's financial district, the Market District, and Victory Square, Elizabeth and Booker uncover several tears which reveal critical past events. Lady Comstock confronting Rosalind about Elizabeth's origins, Zachary Comstock making an arrangement with Fink to murder the Luduses, and the Luduses visiting the photo studio where their own funeral photos were taken. This information, along with several voxophones left in the tear's wake, revealed that Elizabeth is not Comstock's daughter, and he had Lady Comstock and the Luduses murdered to keep the secret. Now truly understanding Lady Comstock's unfortunate circumstances, Elizabeth confronts her ghostly image in Victory Square, saying that they must both let go of their pain and resentment towards each other, that is Comstock, who wronged them both, who must be their true target. Soothed by Elizabeth's words, Lady Comstock destroys the Comstock house gate, wishing Elizabeth and Booker well before vanishing. Elizabeth then sincerely thanks Booker for his help before the two head through the gate. As Booker and Elizabeth begin to make their way to Comstock House, Songbird appears from below, grabbing Booker and throwing him in a nearby building. When the creature attempts to kill him, Elizabeth gives up her freedom to save his life, surrendering to Songbird and telling him to take her back to the tower. However, Songbird instead brings her to Comstock House.
I never should have left. I never should have left. Take me back. Take me home. Please.
A complex interaction between time and reality occurs as Booker navigates Comstock House. When he first arrives, he notes with confusion that there is snow on the building in July, implying that he had passed through a tear. In the short time he's there, Booker finds voxophones from Elizabeth in several tears, suggesting a much greater time has passed, where Comstock scientists have subjected Elizabeth to torture, experimentation, and mental conditioning. When their efforts were unsuccessful after half a year, they chose to instead fit her with a device to force her to behave. When Booker does finally encounter Elizabeth, she is significantly much older. From a billboard advertising a 1984 model car and scrolling news feeds showing the date as December 31st, 1983, it can be determined that she is 92 years old. It claims that in her time at Comstock House, she was eventually molded into the very harbinger of destruction Comstock wished. This alternate version of Elizabeth is the one responsible for the attack on New York featured in Booker's dreams. However, she expresses great regret over what she has become and gives Booker a coded note, which includes a sketch of a birdcage to deliver to her younger self before sending him through a tear to rescue her.
What is this?
Sure enough.
What does it say?
It's advice.
Advice on what?
Booker arrives just as Elizabeth is being operated on to fit her with her leash, a collar meant to release an intense shock whenever she is disobedient. As Booker moves about the facility to shut down the siphons restraining her powers, the scientists note that the process is taking place without anesthesia or sedatives on Comstock's orders. When the siphons are switched off, Elizabeth opens a tear into an American Midwest besides a tornado, killing the scientist before closing it. After Booker unhooks her from the restraints and spinal tap holding her in place, Elizabeth calmly resolves that she is going to kill Comstock. When Booker refuses to let her, she reopens the tear to the tornado-ravaged landscape to show the extent of her will and power. She relents, however, when Booker claims that he will kill Comstock himself.
Find an airship and we'll leave
Booker.
Paris, Elizabeth. Remember, you wanted to go
We're
to...
not leaving. We are going to find Comstock.
Why?
You saw what he turns me into. I will not allow that.
And so what, you're going to kill him?
This is where you start moralizing, Booker. You forget. I know you.
I'm not going to let you kill him.
Really? Booker? What are you going to do to stop me?
Not a damn thing. Because I'm going to do it for you.
Elizabeth and Booker confront Comstock on the airship, the Hand of the Prophet. While there, Comstock attempts to bring Elizabeth to his side by suggesting that Booker knows more than what he is telling, and demanding that Booker say what happened to Elizabeth's finger, which has been deformed since she was a child. A struggle ensues between Comstock and Elizabeth, and Booker intervenes, ranting as he grabs Comstock and drowns him in the baptismal font. In doing so, Booker reveals some knowledge of what happened to Elizabeth's finger, information he immediately claims not to understand. As they navigate the Hand of the Prophet, Elizabeth pieces together that the tower on Monument Island is itself the siphon and has harnessed and limited her powers for years. To escape Columbia, the two direct the airship towards Monument Island, but are cut off by Vox ships. At that moment, Elizabeth cracks the code left to her by her alternate self. A drawing of a cage is meant to represent the musical notes C, A, G, and E, the tone used to control Songbird. Destroying a nearby musical statue, she retrieves the whistle inside and gives it to Booker, who uses it to send Songbird after the Vox ships. Upon reaching Monument Island, the two give Songbird one final order: destroy the tower and the Siphon. Following the destruction of the Siphon, a tremendous power surge unlocks the full extent of Elizabeth's powers. She is able to create, open, and see an infinite number of tears. In the process, the instrument used to control Songbird is dropped and the creature comes after them. Elizabeth opens a tear into the welcome center of early 1960s Rapture and causing Songbird to be crushed by ocean pressure. Elizabeth, now able to see every reality and possibility, has become virtually omniscient. She leads Booker to a realm between realities, each displayed as one of many lighthouses that all represent the beginning of Booker's journey, at the same time paying homage to Jack's expedition. Elizabeth explains that the worlds behind each door are the same and different in specific ways, all somehow connected. Elizabeth reveals that Booker's memory of events is flawed. He never agreed to retrieve her from Columbia in exchange for eliminating his debts. Rather, Booker gave his infant daughter Anna to Robert Ludus for that same purpose. Booker then realizes that Elizabeth is really his daughter, and losing her finger is what gave her the power to create tears in dimensional time and space when her body became a part of two separate dimensions. Shaken by this revelation, Booker blames Comstock for everything and says that he and Elizabeth can now go on with their lives now that he is dead. Elizabeth angrily states that Comstock is still alive in a million worlds, and Booker responds that they need to smother the son of a bitch in his crib. Elizabeth asks if that is truly what he wishes to do before transporting Booker to one final location, the site of the baptism from which he fled. Here, Elizabeth from several different realities emerge to reveal that Booker and Comstock are the same man from different realities, one in which he was baptized after the battle at Wounded Knee and one in which he was not. In the reality where he accepts the baptism, that event acts as Zachary Hale Comstock's birth. Booker then allows the parallel universe Elizabeth to drown him, preventing his choice from ever being made and stopping Comstock from ever existing. One by one, the alternate versions of Elizabeth begin to disappear as the main Elizabeth remains.
No. I'm both.
Anna?
Is that you?
And that ends yet another episode of History Behind the Horror. But our story doesn't end here with Elizabeth. We still got more information to cover from Bioshock Burial at Sea, but we're going to be saving the episode for a later date. So if you guys really did enjoy this video and you would like to see Elizabeth return on this channel sometime in the near future, make sure you guys like the video, make sure you guys share it, and make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already, because we got things coming up in the near future that I'm sure you wouldn't want to miss. And also remember to hit the bell notification so you will be the first to know when a new episode is available. And also make sure you guys leave a comment for what you thought about this episode and what other videos you would like to see on this channel sometime in the near future. With that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight, and I hope to see you on another episode of History Behind the Horror.